Welcome everyone to the last installment of our major exploration speaker series. This has been a really good semester. We've had a lot of really great speakers, and today we are ready to hear from another great Haskell alum, Brittany Hall, and we will have a discussion with Brittany about her experience at Haskell. But first, I would like to do an introduction. Brittany works at the University of Kansas in the Finance and Planning in Research Administration Department. And she also is an adjunct instructor in the Haskell School of Business. Additionally, Brittany teaches the Haskell seminar classes. So maybe some of you had Brittany as an instructor in the Haskell 101 class or the UNIV 101. It's not 101, is it? 105. UNIV 105? Okay. Seminar. Anyway, as a Haskell student, she participated in cheerleading. She was squad captain for 2 years and was the Haskell homecoming queen in 2010. Some of Brittany's favorite memories were Saturdays cheering at football games and hanging out with friends. After earning a degree at Haskell, Brittany went on to earn a Master of Business Administration, and she continues to be involved in the Haskell community as treasurer of the Haskell Alumni Association, which I think that role might have changed to Board of Regents representative. Is that right? Yes. Okay, that's great. So she also serves as the treasurer with the KU Native Faculty and Staff Committee, KU Powwow Committee member, and participates in the KU Latinx Faculty and Staff Committee. Brittany is a citizen of the Shawnee Tribe of Oklahoma and is also Cherokee and Choctaw. She serves on the Shawnee Tribal Historical Preservation Kansas City Subcommittee, and her favorite pastimes are spending time with her son, watching him grow and excel in everyday adventures. Brittany and her son love to take walks with their dogs, bike rides, and do anything outdoors. Welcome, Brittany.
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's so good to have you here and so exciting to have you talk to students about some of your experiences at Haskell. Tonight, I kind of want to start from where we're at now in the present and kind of work our way back. So if you could tell us a little bit about your current position at KU and at Haskell, we'll start there.
Okay, great. Hato, Hawikan, Hoisila Namamo, Brittany Netisito. Hello, how are you, friends? My name is Brittany. Just did, general introduction in Shawnee. I am actually Shawnee, such as Miss Lori Hasselman. But we'll get into that later. But thank you so much for the warm welcome and invitation to come speak to everybody. Currently, I am in finance and planning at the University of Kansas. So currently, I fiscally manage about quite a bit, around about 10 million right now for a department at the University of Kansas. And what my job is to track that money and to make sure it's spent in compliance with state and federal regulations and laws. And so part of that is to make sure all the employees for the department are spent at their full-time salary, whether they, sorry if you guys can hear my kid, he's in the back watching a movie. I could hear him yelling. I think he's yelling at the TV. But part of my job is to make sure all of our employees are paid, make sure all of our bills are paid. And some of our bigger grants have cost sharing. So I track cost share, which is an in-kind donation for the work with those projects. So I've been at KU for about 3 years this summer, and it's probably one of my most favorite jobs I've had so far. And I really love the support that KU has. And with my job at KU, I am also able to be active in our community, and that includes our Indigenous community. So I am treasurer currently for the Native staff and faculty at KU, and learning the other councils such as the Latinx community, getting involved in that way, and the women of color community. And then that leads to my work with the KU Powwow and helping out with that.
That's awesome. What about
Great fun.
what about your adjunct work here at Haskell? So you teach a few classes in the School of Business?
Yes. So it all started it actually started in 2018 when I was pregnant with my son. I was first approached to teach seminar. And so I decided, yeah, I want to do this. Let's give it a try. So I taught it. Luckily, I've only missed one class that semester when I gave birth to my son and then came back the next week. So that was pretty exciting. And then I took some time off. At the time, there wasn't any positions open for me. But then I came back in fall of 2019 and just taught Haskell seminar, which is what we know, the orientation class for Haskell. And then after that, I came on, and then I continued with Haskell seminar. And then in fall of 20 was my first semester to go to the School of Business. I teach principles of marketing and business technical writing. And then I also do principles of organizational management.
Awesome. That sounds like you have a lot going on, and like you're super, super engaged and super involved, and a lot going on being involved with your tribe as well with that preservation committee.
Yes. Oh, yes. Very busy with that one. So myself, I was not able to grow up in the traditional Shawnee ways. I was actually, unfortunately, a child who was born into the wrong situation at a very young age. And so I was actually adopted by a white family when I was about 6 years old. And so I never got to know my culture, grew up learning Shawnee or anything. And then when I became older and a student at Haskell and reaching out to different people and learning about other tribes, I was also able to learn about my tribe. And that's something I think Haskell does for a lot of people, such as myself. So coming to my culture at a later age, I'm going to say it's never too late to start. It's never too late to be engaged or to learn. And now with myself, I'm able to go back home and participate in ceremonies and also be involved in our tribal relations, such as the Kansas City Preservation Committee. And I think it's so important for the work that I'm trying to help and do with that, because it opens up the doors for the future. It's important to know the past, but how is that going to help you learn the future? So it's never too late to go back and do stuff for your tribe, because I don't think of it for myself or my personal gains. I think of my child, my son, his name was Mateo. So I think of Mateo. And then if I do have more children, for their future, and then for my grandchildren one day, how am I going to help their future? And so I think that's where my drive comes from, is preserving our culture. And if anyone knows anything about Shawnee culture, we are one of the tribes with so few elders that are fluent in Shawnee. We have about maybe 19 right now because one of our elders passed away this week. So that few of fluent speakers, I find it upon myself, like we have to strive to fight for our future. And so I do also attend language classes for our tribe once a week. I am no pro, I am learning, as we are all going to be forever learners, but I think it's important. And so whatever I learn in class, I try to utilize that at least once a day and talk to my son in Shawnee. So he picks up and he understands what some of the words are, but he kind of knows more of the words of no. I tell him no because he's 3 years old. And so I say mata to him a lot. And so he knows what that means.
That's awesome. So that actually brings up a really, really good point that we have yet to really kind of discuss in depth in these major exploration speaker series workshops or seminars, is the importance of how connecting with your culture can happen at Haskell, even if you haven't really had that connection in the past, and how that kind of plays out in your career goals and with your major. And do you see in the Haskell seminar classes a lot of students that come to Haskell that haven't had that connection with their communities, or just enrolled because they knew that they were connected with the tribe, maybe just a little bit, but they come here and they want to know more, because I know in the seminar you guys do some aspects of them being able to explore those aspects of their culture just even initially.
Yes, so with seminar, I unfortunately haven't had any of our students on the Zoom right now, but I did recognize some of my students on the email list, and I thought that was really great that they were enrolled and able to have the opportunities such as Trio. I'm a different kind of teacher. I like to twist it around. I'm not the traditional, like, do this, do this, do this by the book. I like to put more of my personality into my style of teaching. And, my colleagues kind of know what I'm talking about. But for myself, my first semester of teaching, I stuck to the book. I had a very strict plan, but I was also not getting receptiveness from our students. My students wouldn't talk to me. They wouldn't be engaging. They wouldn't hardly participate in discussions. So when I came back in fall of 19, I decided, I'm going to twist this around a little bit and do something different and be myself and not be Miss Hall instructor. I'm going to be Miss Hall fun instructor, if I want to say that. My students probably get annoyed with me, but I like to be a little extra, and I'm not afraid to say that. I'm totally about that. But with my style of teaching, I think it's important to know the history of who you are and where you come from, but that doesn't define you at the same time. So, I gave my example. It doesn't define who I am and where I'm going to go in life, but some of my students, I can tell that they have the same connection that I did back then. They didn't have that connection, but I want to encourage them that it's not too late to have that connection, whether you're a res kid or an urban kid or suburban, like whatever your lingo is, it's never too late. And an example of that is I started learning in Shawnee culture, we do stomp dancing. And so I didn't learn how to stomp dance until I was about 23, 22. So it's never too late to learn how to do that. So I like to bring in the sense of culture, but also to be open about your culture. And I'm not saying you have to be connected and be spiritual to whatever your culture believes in. Like Shawnees, we believe in Kukumtana, which is grandmother. I'm not saying I need you to believe in this, but be open to learning about it. And I think it's important, especially being a tribal college and university, is that we're supposed to have that structure. And I think that gets lost sometimes. So I try to bring that in by different activities. One thing I have my students do is a poetry slam project, and they have to write a poem with a partner about anything in Indigenous country. Like it could be about MMIW, it could be about pipelines, it could be about sovereignty, anything. Just be creative with it and have fun with it and make it from your heart. And then they present it. But that also helps with their public speaking skills and to learn about their classmates and learn about each other. And I think that's something great. And that's something that sometimes we don't get that in very hardcore structured classes. So I like to be extra.
I totally agree. I totally get that. It's such a great way to start out at a tribal college in the orientation class when you can just already hit the ground running with getting those connections with your identity and develop that identity as you move forward through your experience at Haskell, because somebody has to be there to move the culture forward, right? And the languages and all of that stuff. And that's exactly what tribal colleges should be doing. So your academic journey is a little unique because you were an AIS major, and then you went on to get a master's in business. And then you're also grant writing and also teaching. You make teaching sound like so much fun. And so when I hear that, oh, this is how I got to point A, when you first came to Haskell and you were thinking about what you were majoring in, did that, were you thinking AIS immediately, or can you just talk about how that process worked and how you came to the decision to pursue those degrees?
Yes, I definitely can. And it's a long story, but we got time. I'm just kidding. It's not that long. When I first came to Haskell, I actually came in 2007, and I was actually another university before Haskell. However, at the time, my parents retired and they said, "Oh, you're going to have to pay for school. Take out a loan." I'm like, "Ugh, okay." So I started doing that at this other university, and I was like, "No, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. So I'm gonna go to Haskell and save some money and go from there." So I transferred to Haskell in 2007. And I first was trying to go into the School of Education. So I worked really hard, got my paraprofessional in ed, and then applied. And I ended up missing one class. And they said, "Oh, well, you're gonna have to wait the whole spring semester until you can come back in the fall and apply." I'm like, okay. So I did that and came back in the fall, got into the program. I thought I liked it, and I didn't have that sense of fulfillment and I wasn't happy. I am not saying the School of Ed program is bad, or by any means, it's a great program. If that's what you truly desired, then do it. But at the time for me, I just felt like I was missing something. So I decided to quit and I went to American Indian Studies. So my senior year, I worked extra hard and did the 2 internships in one semester and took all my classes and still graduated on time. So that was exciting. And I was able to learn about, some of the issues that we have as Native people that I didn't realize at the time. In the program, when I was in school was, back in 2011, 2012 was when I graduated. So it's a little bit, it was different back then. And I wish I would have taken that as my first choice. But then I graduated back in 2012. I tried to go into Indigenous Studies at KU for the master's program. I'm so sorry. One sec. And then I decided to go into that program, took the class, and I was like, you know what? I'm just not really feeling this. I honestly think I was kind of burnt out just going to school so much at a time. So I decided to take a break and relax and just kind of think about what I wanted to do. And then that summer I decided, you know what? I think I would like to try business. I think I could be really good at that. So I applied, got in, and then got my master's and finished in 2015.
That is awesome. So, I mean, this is a prime example of that students can look at and say, gosh, I mean, you were in a constant process of evaluating what you really wanted to do with those degrees and what you really wanted in life. And it was okay. It turned out okay, right? So, I mean, just from the School of Education to AIS, back to AIS, and then to business. I mean, that's like such a wide spectrum of different career paths that you were able to explore. And then in the end, today, those all came together and incorporated because you're teaching, you are work in finance, um, and you are involved in your tribe and your tribal community. So that all seems to have come like full circle for you. So let's talk a little bit about your experience at Haskell and what things were important in helping you reach your career goals. Like, what did you experience at Haskell
Hmm.
that impacted and helped you along the way?
I think a lot of things impacted me, personal and academic. I'll stick with academic for right now. Academically, it took me a little while to kind of figure out what I really wanted to do in life. And this is something, the full circle, Lori, is exactly what I was talking to my students today in seminar, is that, and in grad school, I did not like accounting. What am I doing now? Numbers. Okay. I tried to be an educator, didn't really feel happy in the program. What did I do? Right after Haskell, I was teaching at Little Nations for 4 years, and now I'm teaching college students. And then I think about not being connected culturally at a young age, and now in my 30s I am, and now I'm having my son at an early age be connected because I have this chance and this opportunity to do that. But I think some of the being active on campus and being in different leadership roles and being on clubs such as cheerleading, I definitely learned a lot with cheerleading on how to work as a team and how far that can really help you. And actually my senior year, I'm sorry, my kid is throwing dinosaurs across the gate right now. So I just hear these little dinosaurs making sounds. Actually my senior year of college, our coach ended up not coming back. And so we were coachless for a whole semester and we didn't get a coach until January. So the school said, oh, you're captain, you can be the coach. So being captain and coach as a senior when all of my teammates were a year or a couple of years younger than me was very difficult to learn how to manage that. And also myself being young and hothead, it was difficult. So I think learning from that and just growing from it, it was definitely an experience. And I actually ended up being the coach the next year after I graduated in 2013, 2014. But again, I was just a couple years older than most of the girls. So that was hard to manage as teammate to coach for real. And there was a lot of situations and conflict with that. But that was a long time ago. So I think cheerleading has definitely helped me learn how to be the leader I am and to embrace who I am as a person and always learn from your mistakes or learn from non-mistakes and how do you grow from it and how do you apply it for the future. But the full circle, that's a very good point because I talk to my students about this every day. I think about where I came from, nothing, and where I built myself up as a professional at Haskell and how I continue to grow that to take on the leadership roles that I'm trying to have right now and where I continue to be at. I think I went a little off topic. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, it sounds like we've had a lot of alumni come on and speak that were from athletics, that had athletic experiences. Our last speaker was highly involved in athletics at Haskell during his time there and talked about how some of those experiences were super impactful on their academic journey, how they conduct themselves in their career, a lot to do with leadership and interacting with other folks in a team setting. So, I mean, we at Trio is super, we advocate all the time for our student athletes, and we have a lot of students that participate in athletics. So those are really, really good points. Someone says, is there a big difference between teaching preschoolers and college freshmen? Serious question.
Let's see. I don't have to change diapers with college students, so I'm just playing. There are big differences, but I think one similar thing is the eagerness to learn. I can see that at a very young age. And even with my wild child back there, that's, I think, hurting the dog. And with the freshmen and transfer students I see the look on their eyes when I kind of have these serious conversations about full circle and like how we're connected. Because I strongly believe in how are we connected? Like why are you in my class? What brought you to my class? One, well, because they enrolled in it, but I believe that we're connected, that they're going to learn something from me, whether that's from me jambling or maybe a guest speaker I bring in, or maybe we're related, or maybe they just kind of need that motivation, or maybe I need motivation from them. But I do strongly believe that we're connected for a reason and a purpose. And we may not know that now, or we may not know that in 5 years or 10 years, but one day we'll know why we were brought together. And I think that eagerness to learn and that happiness that I see in eyes when it clicks. And it's sometimes hard to explain until you've been in that situation or had that experience. But as Indigenous people, I think we're brought together for a reason, and we're still trying to figure out that reason. We may not know today or tomorrow, but one day we will. And then how do we move forward and, grow with it?
Right, right. So I feel like that for students who are watching that are kind of trying to decide on what majors that they're wanting to take, it seems like such a far stretch when you look at AIS and business, right? I know when I was a student, there used to be a little bit of beef there between AIS department and between business department, because business was always like, well, AIS is the easy route. We have to do microeconomics in business, and all they have to do is write essays and read books and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about, I mean, was it a difficult process for you to go from, writing using creative language to technical writing to accounting and those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think it was a little difficult for myself, just not knowing, to also think about writing in the sense of AIS and then learning how to write business, because it's totally different. But it was difficult at first, but after a while I caught my groove on, and learned how to adapt. But I think they do go hand in hand with the work I want to do now. Is how do I get more involved with our tribe, and how do I help fight for the future of our tribe, and think about long-term sustainability for our children and our grandchildren. I was actually talking to our chief about that yesterday, about how do we help families financially learn about finances. And that's something that's really interesting to me, is how do we help teach families how to sustain long-term? Hypothetically speaking, if someone gets really ill, like what's their backup plan, and kind of help family plan that future.
Yeah, we talk a lot about that in Trio too, with financial literacy and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that feels like that. I know when I was growing up, my parents never talked to me about how to manage money, or they didn't have money to give me an allowance. So I didn't, manage money very well. Nobody in my family ever discussed those kinds of things with me. But I think also that you bring up a good point with the AIS before the business. I know when we would have these little beefy conversations, hater conversations with the business school at Curtis, we always thought it was odd that they didn't have any kind of background in Native history or thought or philosophy, because it's so important if you're in a business setting to have that foundation. So when you're making these decisions, that you do it with Indigenous thought, and not, when you're making decisions about that might infect the environment or, the economy of your tribe, that you're doing that from an Indigenous mindset. And so I honestly feel like that your path is probably, if you're going to end up in business or in that kind of career, is probably a really good pathway. So, does anybody have anything that they want to inject into the conversation, or anybody have any questions that they want to ask Brittany? Brittany, what advice do you have for students that are considering their career path or major, or just any advice in general that you have for students that are at Haskell right now?
Yes, I have a lot of advice, and it's because I learned from my mistakes. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, whether that's in student clubs or organizations or the student government or sports, whatever it is. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there personally and academically, because I really wish I would have pushed myself and did more internships, because I definitely didn't. I did not apply for enough scholarships. At the time, my tribe had a tribal scholarship, so I always used that to pay my tuition, because when I was at Haskell, it was only $215 a semester. So I was super happy and lucky that it was that cheap. Yes, if cheerleading was still at Haskell, I would totally coach it again. I am a big fan of cheerleading. I've done cheerleading for years. I was the one that they would toss in the air and catch, hopefully. Sometimes they didn't, and it hurt a lot. Yeah, fun fact, I actually got so hurt I had to go to the hospital. So it was not fun. That was my senior year of college. One sec. I think he's ready for dinner.
I bet.
But don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Push for it. Don't stay up all night and pull all-nighters. Plan your time, really work on your time management and get your homework done during the week, and don't wait until Sunday night and then sit in the comments and stress and stay up all night. Don't do that. It's not good for your skin and it's not good for your brain. Do not let relationships get in the way of your personal and your academic goals. I let a relationship in college get in my way, and I should have graduated back in 2010, not in 2012. But I let a relationship get in the way. So it took me a while to get done. And I think it's important. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with relationships, but being a healthy relationship and something that's not toxic, because that's what I was in. And it's so hard to get out of. But once you do, you're thankful. And I think that's also something that contributes to what keeps me to strive every day, is a bad relationship, and how I will never let something like that happen to me again as an Indigenous woman. So I think that's a big thing. And I think some of our younger generations really need to hear those real stories, because it's not talked about. I share with my classes about my, when I was in college, about the domestic abuse I endured. And I think it's so important to not only hear it from someone who's Native, but to hear it in general, and that it really does happen and it's not spoken about. And I think it's so important to be talked about, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. You grow from it, and thankfully I survived that.
That's such good advice. I feel like that, yes, we should definitely be talking to students about that, both our men and our women. I know I used that in my admissions essay to Haskell about how I couldn't go to college. I didn't go to college because I had a boyfriend. The only time I ever heard anything about college or anything about Haskell was from my dad. And he kept saying, you should check out Haskell. You should check out Haskell. And I'm like, I got a boyfriend. I'm going to get married, and that didn't turn out so well. So, yeah. So, and I know at that age, or, really sometimes at any age, it's hard to get focused on what's best for you and to prioritize the things that are, is best for your own pathway when you have so many different people that you're thinking about. I mean, even in, situations where you're supporting other family members, because I know a lot of students at Haskell go through that. At least in my experience at Haskell, I had a lot of friends that were sending money home on a regular basis, and it was hard for them to prioritize themselves in those situations. So you always have to put yourself first, and everything else will fall into place for sure. So does anybody else have any questions for Brittany? Any comments? Anybody want to share any experiences? Everybody's quiet today. I think everybody's on Zoom fatigue. Have you had that experience in your classes at all? Students being on Zoom fatigue right now?
Oh yeah, I've yelled at them. I told them a couple of times, if you guys don't talk to me, then I'm just going to load on a bunch of homework.
And the cameras come on, right?
I actually require it in my classes. One, because I totally understand right now it's so hard being on Zoom or Blackboard Collaborate, whatever the instructors are doing. I know it's so hard. I know it's stressful, but also remember that instructors are going through a hard time as well.
Right.
I know like last semester was probably the hardest because my mom actually got really, really sick and I had to take off some time from work. But I know it's hard, but you know, I had this and just be patient. And I always talk to my students and tell them to always be open-minded and talk to their instructors and let them know what's going on with themselves. Or it's hard, but we got to keep fighting and keep moving forward.
Right. That's great advice. Great advice. Well, Brittany, we really appreciate that you came and talked to us this evening. And let's see, Mateo. Hi, Mateo.
Yeah.
Say hi.
Oh, yay. That's our future Haskell student right there. I really appreciate you. I appreciate all the advice that you gave. It's great advice for students, and hopefully we'll be able to direct a lot of students that weren't able to make it tonight to the recording. So thank you again, Brittany, for everything and for speaking it with us and taking time to do that.
Yes. Always my love is at Haskell. It's always been at Haskell. And this is probably why I have not left Lawrence. It's because of Haskell. And I just want to just kind of close and just for the 3 students with us to be better than what we could be. I say that to all my classes, is that I want you to do better than what I did when I was in your shoes. And that's because if I don't say that, then I'm setting a precedent that I don't want you to succeed. So I want you to do better and do more than what I did.
Love it. Thank you
So you guys,
so much.
you 3 can do it. 3.
Right.
You guys got it. And if you ever want to take my business classes, take them. I'm fun, or so I think I'm fun, but I like to, you know, keep it different and keep it good and learn something.
That's awesome. Thank you, Brittany.